On January 20th, 1961, John Fitzgerald Kennedy was inaugurated as President of the United States, ushering in a landmark new era in politics. However, little did anyone in this crowd know that JFK was also ushering in a new era in men's fashion. So John Fitzgerald Kennedy came from a very famous Irish-American immigrant family, and one of the things that the family very consciously tried to do for public image was turn themselves into an all-American clan. And one of the ways that they did this was with their fashion. By buying wholesale into like the New England prep kind of style, they were able to assimilate themselves into broader American culture with a very regimented set of rules that the prep style supplies. JFK's specific style was kind of a mix of both waspy kind of prep and also like a coastal influence with a little sprinkle of like the military history that he had. You can see that perfectly in this photo of him wearing his bomber jacket on his yacht. The thing that consistently comes up for me whenever I look back at these photos of JFK is I swear it feels like that they could have been taken yesterday, because his outfits are just that timeless, such as the benefit of buying into the prep style, but JFK just really did it well. We're talking a lot about what we would call on TikTok like normcore style, a lot of these neutral colors, just good classic color pairings, not reinventing the wheel, but just doing what you're supposed to do really well within this style. It's asking the question of what if old white people clothes but good. You can see that with his very chunky sweaters, which were not exciting necessarily, but just look very well because he knew how to do it. And the thing I really want to get across is that JFK felt comfortable in these clothes. You can just tell that by how comfortable he was wearing them. And he also just knew the rules well enough that he could know when to break them. You can see that with his prodigious use of sneakers, which he would use a lot on his boats because, you're not wearing leather dress shoes, whenever you're out yachting. He also just eliminated me to the fact that you can wear just like Converse high tops in this fashion. Something about Converse I always associate with kind of like grunge looks, but it very much just does work in this fashion, which is good on you, JFK. This old money look is really typified by this lack of ornamentation because that these people are rich. It's a quiet kind of luxury. It's not loud. Quiet. I know that you can overharp on this, but it kind of does just offer him a bit of freedom that you may not see in certain other styles, where he would just wear like these plain white t-shirts, which is something that is like almost too boring to wear on its own, except that when you do it right, like he does, it's like, oh my God, this is the best looking thing of all time. But he did not go without any ornamentation. JFK chose his accessories much in the same way that he actually chose his clothing, wherein it was kind of understated but very high quality. You can see that in his selection of watches, where he kind of favored the tank style watch, which is similar in style to this, but obviously much more expensive because he's JFK. Strangely enough, he didn't favor like the diver watch, which is, you would think he would because it's like nautical. I mean, it's a diver watch. It was founded for, like divers. But for some reason, he never like really took to those. He would occasionally wear them, but he mostly preferred like the tank style. There's a very famous diver style watch that he never wore, which was of course given to him by Marilyn Monroe after the whole happy birthday president thing, which he was never going to wear because of the controversy around that. He also had a favorite pair of sunglasses whenever he was president, which were these turtle shell Wayfarer sunglasses, which he just particularly took to, and also produced the single hardest photo ever taken. If you can look at this photo and don't immediately just snap into a salute, go to the doctor, you are having a stroke. So you can actually get an official pair of them from the JFK Presidential Library, which is where I got this bad boy, which is a Kennedy torpedo boat tie clip, which he did famously wear. The tie clip is something that I personally think should just be utilized more because it just elevates a lot of these formal outfits with like another piece of completely acceptable jewelry, and also it looks just classic and performs a function at the same time. JFK knew what he was doing, so he did it, so he gets my thumbs up. He also wore cufflinks a lot of the time, which is another piece of just male jewelry that should just be utilized more because it just looks good. And now for possibly the single most controversial piece of JFK's fashion history. the hat debacle. So the classic story that goes around on the internet is that JFK kind of ended hat wearing in America because he went to his inauguration and at some point took his top hat off, and at that point just, hats were being burned out in the streets. This is just not the case. JFK consistently wore a fedora style hat while out in the campaign trail, and also wore a top hat to his inauguration, something which even Eisenhower didn't do. So he was actually more traditional than the previous president. Now, it is true that he did wear a hat out in public less than other presidents had in the past. However, that was just a symptom of less hat wearing in general by the public, not any, avant-garde movement by JFK. If anyone's to blame due to the lack of hat wearing at inaugurations, it's Johnson or Nixon, who both wore one to a previous inauguration, but chose not to at their own. So add that to, Nixon's controversies. One of the things I do have a lot of respect for JFK in this sector is that presidential suits are by virtue very boring. You're only allowed to wear essentially 3 colors, black, gray, and blue. But JFK was able to do it, and even within this strict regimentation, was able to be at least a little bit expressive, or at least, do it the best. So in addition to his numerous formal accessory, he was also one of the few presidents to properly rock a skinny tie, which is something that you gotta do right, but he did, so, no notes. But more importantly, he was one of the last to wear these true traditional outfits out in public, such as morning dress to his inauguration, black tie, and white tie. But it wasn't also just the top formality. He was also kind of that middle range. He was great at, the mismatched suit and the sport coat look. JFK was also likely the first president to wear a blue dress shirt, which I know is just, unthinkable, but it very much was kind of untouched territory in the true formal wear area. And some people actually claim that this goes back to JFK's love for the James Bond movies, where Sean Connery does wear some particularly good blue dress shirts. Going through these outfits is really just made me realize just how dedicated to the craft that JFK is, and just how having good fundamentals is just enough. If you're just good at doing the basics well enough, you don't really have to do anything else. And if you want to improve your fundamentals on something, watch this video.